She was stronger than the men on her team, and just one final push away from becoming the first American woman to summit Everest. But in May of 1982, on the icy face of the Great Couloir, elite guide Marty Hoey vanished in the blink of an eye. She wasn't killed by an avalanche or a storm. It was a microscopic, almost invisible mistake that sent her plunging into the void, and forever changed the rules of safety in the world of mountaineering. How did a flawless professional die just one step away from making history? And why does her story still send a chill down the spine? Let's find out. Charleston, South Carolina, 1951. A young girl is growing up in a family where the word can't is rarely spoken. It's a home where you aren't taught to fit into other people's boxes. You're taught to think for yourself. Marty Hoey isn't like the other girls. While they're listening to the radio, she's going to classical music concerts. While they're dreaming about dates, she's devouring The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, a dense philosophical novel about a sanatorium in the Alps where characters discuss life and death, trapped between heaven and earth. A strange choice for a girl from a small southern town. But Marty always made the strange choice. The book becomes her Bible. She reads it over and over again. A story about people trapped in the mountains, about a tuberculosis sanatorium, about slowly fading away at high altitude, about how isolation warps your sense of reality. No one knows that this plot will turn out to be a sinister prophecy, that 30 years later, Marty will find herself in the mountains for real, and that those mountains will become her final resting place. But for now, she's just a smart girl with a wide range of interests. Her friends call her obsessed with knowledge. Rick Ridgway, one of her closest companions, remembers her sharp mind, her endless curiosity, and a complete lack of snobbery. Marty could talk about Bach and hiking gear with equal ease. She had a particular sense of humor, pragmatic, ironic. She didn't understand why people made simple things so complicated. One day, her friends drag her along on a fly fishing trip. It's a whole philosophy. The right cast, the right fly, the right time of day. Marty takes it all in and delivers a line that would become legendary. How hard can it be to outsmart a trout? Her friends burst out laughing. She's dead serious. To her, it's a genuine question. Why romanticize something that can be solved with logic? That was her. Not sentimental, not a dreamer. Her mind worked like a Swiss watch. And that mind would soon take her to a place where women in the early 70s were absolutely not welcome. The early 1970s. Marty leaves South Carolina and heads for the Pacific Northwest, to where the mountains are real, where you can work at altitude year-round. She knocks on the door of Rainier Mountaineering, Inc. RMI isn't just a company, it's the elite, the best guides in the country, the ones who lead clients up Mount Rainier, over 4,000 meters of ice and rock. There's just one problem. There are no women at RMI, none. In the early 70s, the mountain guiding industry is a closed men's club. They don't just not expect women. They're convinced women are physically incapable of doing the job. The heavy packs, grueling hours-long ascents, the responsibility for the lives of others, making split-second decisions when everything is on the line. None of that mattered to Marty. She goes for it. She proves she can haul the same loads as the men, that she can lead a rope team, that she won't crack under pressure, and she makes the team. One of the people who gives her that chance is Lou Whitaker, a legend in American mountaineering, the first American to summit Everest, a man whose opinion on the mountain carries more weight than any degree or award. Whitaker becomes her mentor. He watches her, puts her to the test, and after a few seasons he tells his colleagues, she's shattered the myth. Women can perform to the exact same standards we do. Marty completes more than 100 ascents of Rainier. 100 times, she leads people up that icy volcano and brings them back down. Every single time, with a group of clients in tow. Every single time, responsible for making sure they all get home alive. Her technique is flawless, but what truly sets her apart is something else. Whitaker has a word for it: judgment, that ability to weigh the risks, to see danger a split second before it becomes real. One day, her group is moving through the Gibraltar Chute, a narrow channel through the cliffs, a notorious spot for rockfall. One of the climbers decides to cut a corner. He wants to duck under an overhanging rock face to save a few minutes. Marty spots him. She doesn't ask. She doesn't suggest. She shuts him down, instantly. Her voice is iron. It's an order, not a suggestion. A minute later, a cascade of rocks thunders down right where he would have been. The group falls silent. Then someone whispers, "She just saved our lives." Marty shrugs it off. To her, it's just the job. Logic, calculation. There's no magic to it. But at RMI, they start to realize she's not just a good guide. She's one of the best. Gender means nothing when lives are on the line, and you've got this foolproof instinct for what's coming next. 1974. The Soviet Union. The Pamir Mountains. Marty gets an invitation that, during the Cold War, sounds like something straight out of a spy novel. She's flying behind the Iron Curtain. This isn't just about climbing, it's geopolitics. The USA-USSR Pamir Expedition, an international climbing camp set up during a brief political thaw. American and Soviet climbers are there to show the world they can cooperate, at least on the side of a mountain. The American team is a who's who of female climbers: Arlene Bloom, Molly Higgins, and right there with them is Marty Hoey. But the Pamirs are a brutal welcome. This is a long way from their home mountain, Rainier, with its 4,000 meters. Here, the peaks are 7,000ers. This is the zone where the air has half the oxygen, and hypoxia slowly starts to kill off brain cells. Marty pushes for the summit. She climbs Peak Ras Del Naya, 7,010 meters. It's her first foray into the death zone, the first time her lungs burn for air, and every single step is an act of pure will. But what about the expedition's main objective, Lennon Peak, at 7,134 meters? Well, that's where the story gets a little hazy. The records are conflicting. Some sources say she made it all the way to the top. Others insist she only got as far as Ras Del Naya, which serves as a high camp on the way to the true summit. In the chaos of that era's paper trail, the truth was lost. But for Marty's career, none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was this: she was back. This expedition was her ticket into the elite. She proved her body could endure where many men would break. Her name was now known far beyond RMI. She had entered the ranks of proven high-altitude climbers. 7,000 meters changes everything. It's a different league, where mistakes are fatal, and endurance borders on masochism. Marty passed the test. The Pamirs became the springboard that would launch her toward the Himalayas just a few years later. Now, when leaders planned serious expeditions, a new question came up. Maybe we should get Hoey. She had cemented her reputation as someone you could trust with your life on the edge of the world. But an ordeal lay ahead that would shake her to the core, more than any mountain ever could. And it wasn't a matter of physical exhaustion, but an ethical disaster on Nanda Devi. The year is 1976, India, the Garhwal. Nanda Devi, 7,816 meters. A sacred summit, closed to foreigners for decades. Marty Hoey was part of an elite Indo-American expedition. Their goal was audacious, a new route up the Northwest Ridge. This was more than just a climb. It was about filling in the blank spaces on the map. The expedition got off to a strong start. They were gaining altitude, establishing camps. But at around 4,300 meters, something went wrong. Marty's body broke down. It wasn't a failure of will. It was a complete biological collapse. A crippling case of dysentery. At an altitude where the body is already fighting for oxygen, dehydration kills with frightening speed. She was weakening before their very eyes, transforming from a leader into a patient. The expedition doctor, Jim States, delivered a verdict that was not up for debate: immediate evacuation. Staying here meant certain death. But Marty said no. A furious argument erupted in the tent, one that would later go down in the annals of climbing ethics as law versus medicine. The doctor was fighting to save a life. Marty was fighting for the right to make her own choice about that life. She declared her right to remain. She was willing to risk it all rather than turn back. To her, being sent down at the start of the expedition was a fate worse than death. States was adamant. The team sided with the doctor. They couldn't just let her die on their watch. Marty was evacuated by force, against her will. A helicopter plucked her from the slope, carrying her down into the safety of the valley, a place she now despised. She survived. But this rescue left scorched earth in her soul. Marty returned to the U.S. with a heavy burden, a feeling of incompleteness and deep shame. She felt she had shown weakness, that she had let the team down, that her own body had betrayed her when it mattered most. While others said, "The main thing is that you're alive," she heard, "You failed." This incident on Nanda Devi became the turning point for her, psychologically. Her biographers believe the guilt from that evacuation became the fuel that drove her to push herself beyond all limits on Everest. She made a silent promise to herself. This would never happen again. No more helicopters, no more evacuations. Her shame gives way to an obsession with preparation. The next mountain would be her redemption. She would prove to everyone, and most importantly to herself, that she wasn't the weak link, but the strongest climber on the team. Marty doesn't know it yet, but her comeback will be on Everest. What she does know is that next time, she's going to see it through. Winter, Utah, the Wasatch Range. When the climbing season on Rainier ends, Marty swaps glaciers for deep snow. She works at the Snowbird Ski Resort. Here, she has a different role. She's not a high-altitude guide, but a member of the ski patrol. And she's not just any patroller, she's the safety patrol chief. This is not a job for romantics. It's grueling work that starts long before dawn. Every morning, while the tourists are still sleeping, the patrol is already on the peak. Marty reads the snowpack. She's looking for unstable slabs, places where a critical amount of snow has built up. She holds explosives in her hands. The job is as simple as it is terrifying. Trigger an avalanche on purpose, before anyone is on the slope. Controlled chaos for the safety of others. When disaster strikes, a skier gets injured, or a slide breaks loose unexpectedly, she's the first to respond. Evacuations, setting splints, transport, life or death decisions. All of it in real time, with no room for error. The resort is owned by Dick Bass, a Texas oil tycoon, a man with limitless resources, boundless energy, and absolutely zero mountaineering experience. Bass comes to his resort and just watches. He sees this woman in command of a team of rugged men. He sees the way she reads the mountain, the way she stays ice cold under pressure. He goes over to introduce himself. The conversation turns to the real high places. Marty tells him about a different world, about the ice caps of Rainier, the Soviet Pamirs, and a place called Lenin Peak. Bass listens, and a spark ignites. He has the money to buy anything, but he wants something that isn't for sale. He wants to stand up there, on the summit. Marty becomes his guide, a Virgil for a Texan Dante. She agrees to train him from the ground up. It's more than just instruction. She's passing on a philosophy of survival. She teaches him how to tie knots, how to move on a rope team, how to feel the line, how to read the weather. She makes it clear that the mountains don't forgive the kind of arrogance that often comes with being a wealthy beginner. Later, Bass would call her a special human being and a professional guide in every sense of the word. He'd admit that she was the one who opened the door to the world of high-altitude mountaineering for him. Their meeting in Utah might seem like a coincidence, but it's the very moment that sets this whole story in motion. It's here, on the slopes of Snowbird, that a partnership is forged. A partnership that, in just a few years, would spark the idea of the 7 Summits, a project that would change the face of mountaineering forever. And yes, it would be Dick Bass who becomes the first person in the world to complete the 7 Summits challenge. That would happen in 1985. But for now, Marty is patiently honing the skills of her unlikely student. For the oil tycoon, she is a guide to a world where money means nothing, and for her, he is the first person to see her not as the survivor from Nanda Devi, but as the master she truly is. Little do they know, this training session is just the prologue to an incredible story. The year is 1981. The place, Alaska. The mountain, Denali, 6,190 meters high. Known as the Great One, it's the highest peak in all of North America. This is a place where the weather doesn't just change, it attacks. Dick Bass, a Texas oil tycoon and the owner of the Snowbird Ski Resort, has his sights set on this mountain. He's got the ambition, the money, and the dream. But in the world of high-altitude climbing, the real currency is experience and endurance. And that's something Bass just doesn't have. So he turns to the one person he trusts implicitly, Marty Hoey. They know each other from back in Utah. During the winters, she's the director of his ski patrol, blasting avalanches, rescuing skiers. Now, he's asking her to save him, in Alaska. Marty agrees. She's one of the elite guides at Rainier Mountaineering Incorporated, or RMI. And at the time, she's the only female guide in the entire organization certified to lead expeditions on Denali. It's a closed-off old boys club. Breaking into that world as a woman is next to impossible. But Marty isn't some token hire. She's there because she works harder and climbs better than most of the men. Denali is her office, a world of extreme cold, thin air, and storms so violent they can shred a tent to pieces. Base, on the other hand, is a rookie client. Full of enthusiasm, but technically he's green. So Marty takes on everything. She's not just his guide, she's his mentor. They push upward, camp by camp. The Alaskan winds try to tear them from their feet, and the cold seeps right into their bones. Bass is pushed to his absolute limit, but he refuses to quit, because Marty is right there with him. She's watching his every breath, guiding every placement of his crampons in the ice. Her judgment becomes his life insurance. She knows exactly when to push him forward and when to make the hard call to turn back, and they make it. The summit, 6,190 meters. Base is standing on the roof of a continent. The euphoria is overwhelming. The man who was just a businessman yesterday has achieved the impossible today. And it's right here, on the way down, that something clicks in his mind. An idea is born, one that will change the world of climbing forever. If he could conquer Denali, why stop there? Why not Australia? Why not Elbrus? Why not Everest? The 7 summits, he thinks. The highest peak on each of the 7 continents. The legendary 7 Summits project is born in that very moment. Base is consumed by the idea, burning with a new ambition. But it's Marty who turns that initial spark into a roaring fire. She doesn't laugh at his wild ambition. Instead, she fuels his belief. She proves to him that with the right training and the right guide, the boundaries of what's possible simply melt away. They come down from the Alaskan peaks as conquerors. Base immediately starts planning his global odyssey, and Marty is there every step of the way, helping with logistics, training him, preparing him for the Himalayas. To him, she is the ultimate teacher, and neither of them has any idea what the future holds. Base will go on to complete his quest. In 1985, he'll stand on top of Everest, becoming the first person to conquer all 7 summits. But Marty won't be there to see it. Standing on the summit of the world, Dick Bass will dedicate his achievement to her, to Marty Hoey, the woman who taught him how to believe in himself, but who would be lost forever to the snows of Tibet. But for now, it's still 1981. They're alive, they're happy, and the world is at their feet. The winter of 1982, Argentina, the Andes, Aconcagua, the Stone Sentinel, 6,961 meters. It's the highest point in South America, and in the entire Western Hemisphere. For most climbers, this mountain is a lifetime goal, the ultimate ambition. But for Marty Hoey, this is just a stopover, a staging ground. She's here with one specific mission, to get her body ready for the death zone. This is supposed to be an acclimatization run, a systems check before the main event. A spring expedition to Everest. The team is discussing the plan. Logic points to the normal route. It's a long, grueling, but technically easy slog up a scree slope. They call it the Mule Trail, and not in a good way. Dust, wind, a monotonous trek. Perfect for building endurance, safe, and boring. Marty looks at the map, then up at the mountain, and she turns towards the east face. That's where the Polish glacier is, where you find rock covered in water ice, terrain that doesn't forgive a single mistake. So why should we trudge up that scree slope, she asks, when we could go this way? The team hesitates. This is a risk. Why take a chance right before Everest? Why waste energy on a difficult technical climb when the whole point is just to gain altitude? But Marty is unyielding. This isn't just ambition talking, it's wounded pride. The shadow of Nanda Devi from 1976 still looms over her. For her, Aconcagua isn't about training her lungs. It's about rehabilitating her spirit. She needs to prove, mostly to herself, that she can still push her limits, that she's not just a client, not the girl on the team, but a leader. Her drive is infectious. She doesn't persuade, she inspires. Her confidence shatters the men's skepticism. They agree. They're going for the east face. The climb becomes a masterclass in strength. Marty takes the lead. She cuts steps into the hard neve. She finds a way through the glacier's maze. The east face is a world of cold and punishing wind, strong enough to knock you off your feet. But Marty, she doesn't seem to feel it. She's in her element. Her teammates witness a transformation. This isn't just the RMI guide who leads clients up Mount Rainier. This is a world-class alpinist. She sets a pace that even the strongest men on the team struggle to keep. Her technique is flawless. Every movement efficient, every swing of the ice axe precise. She's not fighting the mountain. She's dancing with it. They complete the route. But this isn't just an ascent of the Polish glacier. They've established a new variation, a new line. What was supposed to be a warm-up run has become a full-blown, pioneering first ascent. It's a triumph that will be overshadowed by what's to come. But within the team, it changes everything. On the summit, gazing out at the endless ridges of the Andes, Marty feels a moment of pure clarity. The doubts she's carried for years simply vanish. The psychological wall built by Nanda Devi has been shattered. She feels her body as a perfectly tuned instrument. Her heart beats steady. Her muscles are brimming with power. Her mind is cool and clear of all fear. The descent to base camp feels like a victory march. Everyone knows it. Marty is ready. She's not talking about training anymore. There's a new steel in her voice. Everest is no longer a dream on the horizon. It's become an inevitable reality. In the tent, warming her hands, she's no longer in Argentina. Her mind is in Tibet. She's talking about the North Face, the Great Couloir. She's visualizing the key sections, planning her tactics. Her friends see that fire in her eyes. It's not euphoria. It's the focus of a predator right before the pounce. She squeezed everything she could out of Aconcagua, a new, difficult route, an altitude of nearly 7,000 meters, and a rock-solid confidence in herself. Now, all that was left was Everest. Marty arrived at the foot of her ultimate mountain in a state of a perfect storm. Behind her were the harsh Pamir Mountains and 100 ascents of Mount Rainier. Under her belt was the freshly conquered east face of Aconcagua, the final piece of her long and grueling preparation. The pain of past failures had finally been forged into a cold fury. Spring 1982. Tibet. Everest. The North Face. This was the first American expedition to this face in decades. China had only just begun to open its borders. Politics, visas, permits. It all came together at this one precise moment. There were 17 people on the team, but all eyes were on one, Marty Hoey, the only woman in the group. They had deliberately rejected the classic route. Their target was the Great Couloir, a narrow ice corridor like a slash from a knife, wedged between massive rock buttresses. It's one of the most technically demanding routes to the summit. There are no beaten paths here, just hard-packed fern and a wind that sucks the heat right out of your bones. The expedition style was uncompromising. On the upper sections of the route, the team would work without the support of high-altitude Sherpas. That means the elevator isn't running. There's no army of support staff to set up your tents and boil your water ahead of time. The climbers carry everything themselves, their bivouac gear, their food, their oxygen. A load that feels manageable at sea level, up here, in the death zone, crushes you into the ice. This is pure, old-school alpinism. You against the mountain, with no safety net of someone else's endurance to catch you. The stakes couldn't be higher. If she succeeds, she will become the first American woman to stand on top of the world. It's more than a personal triumph. It's a historic moment that could change the face of women's mountaineering forever. Marty understands the stakes, but she doesn't let thoughts of glory distract her. Her focus is narrowed to the immediate task. The ice axe, the next foothold, the next few feet of the couloir. The team pushes upward. Base camp, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. The air grows treacherously thin. Every breath is a conscious effort. Every step, a small victory against gravity. In this chaos of cold and hypoxia, Marty is the most composed of them all. Her teammates notice her greatest strength, her judgment, the ability to calmly read the mountain, to sense the weather, to assess the risks in a place where the mind normally fogs over. She conserves energy where others waste it, and that efficiency is what drives her forward. May 15th, 1982. Camp 5 at 7,500 meters. Morning in the death zone. The air here is so thin that the simplest motor skills begin to fail. Tying your boots becomes a 5-minute ordeal. Zipping up your jacket, a test of willpower. The summit team, Marty Hoey, Jim Wickwire, and Larry Nielsen, is preparing to set out. Joining them is Dave Mayer. His job is to help haul gear up to the high camp, lightening the load for those making the summit push tomorrow. The plan is brutal. Gain 600 vertical meters, carve out a platform for Camp 6 at 8,150 meters, and spend the night there before the final push. They're entering the Great Couloir. The weather isn't cutting them any slack. The sky is a leaden gray, and fog creeps up the slope, cutting visibility down to 20, sometimes even 5 meters. The wind isn't strong enough to knock them over, but it's bone-chilling, sapping the warmth right through their down suits. The couloir itself is a giant chute, hemmed in by rock walls. The slope is steep, up to 50 degrees. Underfoot, it's not snow, but hard fern and water ice. Their crampons bite into it with a dry, metallic crunch. There's no room for error. A slip here means a fall all the way to the base of the face. It's impossible to stop a slide on this kind of terrain. The pace is hypnotically slow. Their bodies are at their absolute limit, struggling to pull oxygen from the thin air. 3 steps, a pause to calm a racing heart. Another 3 steps, another stop. Thoughts move like molasses. The world shrinks to the beam of a headlamp and the boots of the person in front. Marty keeps a steady pace. Despite the heavy pack and the crushing fatigue, she stays focused, moving with the kind of efficiency that only comes from years of experience. By 5 p.m., the team reaches the 8,100-meter mark. Behind them lie 8 grueling hours of work on the face. Larry Nielsen and Dave Mayer push on, a little higher and to the right. They need to find a spot for the tent, any kind of ledge on this sheer slope where they can anchor in. Marty and Jim Wickwire stay behind to wait. Their perch is a small rock outcrop, the only island of stone in the couloir's river of ice. The proposed campsite is about 60 vertical meters away. At this altitude, that's nearly an hour's climb. Marty shrugs off her pack. The straps stop digging into her shoulders, and for a moment, it feels easier to breathe. But only for a moment. The hypoxia hits her in a wave. Her heart hammers in her chest, trying to make up for the oxygen deficit. They're standing on a tiny patch of ground above the abyss, waiting for a signal from above. Marty clips her jumar to the fixed rope. The mechanical ascender clicks, locking onto the line. It's pure muscle memory. You're always clipped in, even when you're standing still. At 8,100 meters, your brain is working at a third of its capacity, and your coordination can fail at any second. One clumsy move, a loss of balance, and that safety line is supposed to save your life. She leans her back against the rock outcrop, giving her legs a rest. Jim Wickwire stands beside her. They're silent. Any conversation up here is an unaffordable waste of oxygen. Around them, there's nothing but a thick white veil of fog and the wind, which lulls and then gusts, punching through the protection of their down suits. Marty is exhausted. The lack of Sherpa support means that all the gear, from the tent to the fuel, has been on their own backs all day. Physical fatigue is layered on top of the mind-numbing effects of the altitude, dulling her vigilance. Hidden in this silence is a subtle but deadly threat. Marty's harness is held together by a single metal buckle. The gear back then wasn't auto-locking. To secure the strap, you had to thread it through the buckle and then loop it back on itself, a move called doubling back. Without that crucial step, the webbing is only held in place by friction. It might look secure, but the moment the angle of the load changes, or with any sudden jolt, it can slip right out. No one knows for sure if she forgot to do it that morning, or if the buckle had somehow worked its way loose during the day. But a mistake that would be a simple scare on level ground becomes fatal up here. Marty leans back, putting her full weight into the harness, just trying to take a load off her back before the final push to their camp for the night. Jim Wickwire starts getting his gear together. He needs to haul a coil of rope up to Nielsen and Marr, who are preparing the ledge above. Marty shuffles over slightly, giving him some room on the narrow ledge, and in that moment, she commits her full weight to the harness, trusting her life completely to her gear. Then, cutting through the howl of the wind, there's a sound, a short, metallic ping, like a hammer striking a high-tension wire. Wickwire whips around, and he sees something the mind can't immediately process. The waist belt of Marty's harness is coming undone. Without the double back, the webbing zips through the buckle, slick as a snake. The system fails. Her anchor is gone. Marty pitches backwards, head first, onto the 50-degree ice slope. "Grab the rope!" Wickwire's shout rips through the mist. A desperate, instinctive command. Marty is conscious. She knows exactly what's happening. Her body reacts instantly. She twists onto her side and makes what Wickwire would later call a valiant try. Her hand shoots out, fingers clawing for the safety line. It's a matter of split seconds, inches between life and death. She misses. Her hand grabs nothing but air. On the hard, icy fern, her speed builds instantly. There's no way to stop. Her ice axe is still planted in the snow, back at the belay station, right where she stood just a second before. Nothing to dig in with. Nothing to bite into the ice. Wickwire stares down into the white abyss. He waits for a scream, the sound of impact. Anything. But all he hears is the wind. Marty falls in total silence. She simply vanishes into the mist, falling toward the base of the face, toward the Rongbuk Glacier, 1,800 meters below. Wickwire stands on the now empty ledge, frozen in shock. His mind refuses to process this new reality. Larry Nielsen and Dave Marr start climbing down from above. They see Jim, alone. They see the look on his face. No questions are necessary. The expedition is over. The three of them begin an emergency descent. The only goal now is to get to a radio and report the tragedy. Down below, the news reaches Lou Whitaker, a mountaineering legend and Marty's mentor and close friend. He immediately organizes a search party at the base of the North Face, on the Rongbuk Glacier. The team scours the Bergschrund, the massive crevasse that forms where the glacier pulls away from the rock face. It's the only place her body could have possibly come to rest after a fall from 8,100 meters. They search for hours, scanning the slopes, examining the ice. But there's nothing. No sign of her gear, no trace at all. She had fallen nearly 1,800 meters. Marty was gone, swallowed whole by the mountain. Everest had become her tomb. Later, at a memorial service in base camp, Whitaker would utter the words that became her epitaph. "I can't imagine a more beautiful final resting place." She fell into the most beautiful spot that ever was. The team built a memorial cross out of stones at the foot of the face. This was their final goodbye. Marty Hoey was left right where she dreamed of being, on the slopes of the Great Mountain, frozen forever, just one step away from making history. But Larry Nielsen couldn't just let Everest go. He'd been up there. He'd seen the spot for the next camp. He knew the summit was within arm's reach, just a single day's push, 700 vertical meters away. He makes a decision that borders on insanity, to go for it solo, alone. No partner, no safety rope, no one to back him up. It was a desperate attempt to rewrite the ending. Nielsen climbs past the point where Marty fell. He pushes past 8,200 meters, then 8,300. His lone figure crawls up the north face, reaching an altitude of 8,380 meters, less than 500 meters to the summit. But this is where the human body starts to shut down. The cold cuts through his gear, hypoxia clouds his mind, his fingers go numb. His body gives him an ultimatum: turn back or die. Nielsen turns back. He makes it back to camp alive, but with severe frostbite, and without the summit. His return made it final, and it made something painfully clear, something no one wanted to admit. Marty had been the strongest of them all. She was the engine of the group, the backbone that held the team's confidence together. Lou Whitaker, the expedition leader, said something that summed up the entire ordeal. "If Marty had been with us, we would have made it." There was no maybe or perhaps in his voice, just the absolute certainty of a seasoned professional. With her, they had a shot. Without her, the team's spirit was shattered. Marty's death was a blow they couldn't recover from. The motivation was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness. The expedition was over. In silence, they dismantled the high-altitude camps and packed their gear, leaving the North Face unconquered. They went home, broken. It wasn't the altitude that beat them. It wasn't the hurricane-force winds or the avalanches. Their dream and their friend's life were destroyed by a single, unclipped buckle, a tiny technical detail that turned a potential historic triumph into one of Everest's most bitter tragedies. Before Marty Hoey, Everest had only claimed the life of one other woman, a German climber named Hannelore Schmatz, back in 1979. Marty became the second on that tragic list, and the first American woman to die on the mountain's slopes. Her death set back the ambitions of American women's mountaineering for 6 long years. Marty was meant to be a trailblazer, a symbol of what was possible. Instead, she became a brutal warning. It wasn't until September of 1988 that Stacey Allison finally reached the summit, becoming the first American woman to stand at 8,848 meters. It was the triumph they had all been waiting for since 1982. But there's one detail that changes everything. Allison took the classic route from the south, the same path that has now become the standard, almost tourist route to the top. Marty was tackling the north face by way of the Great Couloir. This is a whole different league of mountaineering. No high-altitude Sherpas, pure alpine style, pushing the absolute limits of human endurance. If she had made it, it wouldn't have just been a record. It would have been a statement of absolute mastery, one that might not have been repeated for decades to come. But she didn't make it, and for the next 6 years, the American climbing community looked at Everest through the lens of that tragedy, remembering an unfastened buckle and a body falling into the abyss. May of 1982 would become one of the darkest chapters in the Himalayan Chronicles, because of a chilling synchronicity of deaths. In the very same days that Marty died, over on the neighboring northeast ridge, the British legends Peter Boardman and Joe Tasker vanished, the absolute elite of world mountaineering. They were attempting a notoriously difficult traverse, climbed high, and then simply vanished into the mist. The mountain made no distinctions. It didn't care how much experience you had, or how strong you were. 3 outstanding lives, Hoey, Boardman, Tasker, were cut short in a single week. A tiny technical error cost Marty her life. The Brits were simply taken by the unknown. Everest had the final say. Marty Hoey's death changes the industry. Not right away, but inevitably. Gear manufacturers study the incident report. They read the finding. The buckle was not double-backed. They realize the system depends on human attention to detail. And at 8,000 meters, that kind of attention is a luxury. The industry accelerates the shift to buckles that lock automatically. Auto-locking buckles. They click shut on their own. They don't require a second step. They don't depend on you remembering to do something at dawn, when your brain is still half asleep and your fingers are frozen. Within a few years, these buckles become the standard. First on professional teams, then everywhere. New climbers today don't even know it was ever any different. But the changes went beyond just the hardware. The culture of the partner check became a hard and fast rule. Before every climb, partners check each other's gear. You don't just trust, you check. Buckles, carabiners, knots, everything. I check my gear is no longer good enough. We checked each other is the new standard. Marty died because her mistake went unnoticed. If Wickwire had just glanced at her harness that morning, he would have seen the undoubled buckle, a second of attention, a single comment, and she would have lived. That's not how it's done anymore. Now, you always check. Dick Bass never forgot. He couldn't forget. She was the woman who had opened up the world of big mountains to him, the one who had guided him on Denali and instilled in him the confidence to believe he could do it. In 1985, he summits Everest. He becomes the oldest person to ever stand on top of the world, 55 years old, an age when most mountaineers have long since retired. He writes a bestseller, 7 Summits. It's a book about the project that all began on Denali, with Marty. Bass dedicates an entire chapter to her. He calls her his mentor. He writes that without her, none of it would have happened. He dedicates his Everest summit to her memory. Standing on the summit, he thinks of the woman who fell just 700 meters short of her own, the woman who was stronger than him, more experienced, more ready. In the town of Gig Harbor, Washington, a memorial is being placed, a stone with a name, the dates. 1951 to 1982, 31 years of life. 100 climbs up Mount Rainier, the Pamirs, Aconcagua, Denali, Everest, Almost? What do you think of this story? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments.